We've got Nate Nadolski in the building. We've got Derek Spallone in the building. So I'm going to start.
Virtually, right?
Right, yes. Glad to have you gentlemen here. How you guys feel?
Good. How about yourself?
Fantastic. It's a little cold, but that's what happens when you have a bald head. So, so how you doing, Derek?
All is well, thank you, man. Yeah, I'm glad to hear is all as well, and thank you guys for the invitation. To be a part of this discussion, and it's always great to connect with current students through the ecosystem, and also I'm sure maybe some former students as well. So it's definitely special. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So let's jump into it. So I'm going to throw this question out to both of you. And let's go with Derek first, and then Nate, you'll follow up when Derek gets done. The question I have for you is, tell everybody a little bit about yourself and what makes you an expert in this industry. Derek, you've got the floor.
For sure. Yeah, no, that's a loaded one. I think definitely, continuing to work and trying to grow to, be at that standard, but I appreciate that. And, for me, my journey was I think a little ambitious and kind of jumped out the gate, as Linda kind of alluded to. So, I'm from the Wheeling, Buffalo Grove, Illinois area. So I attended at the Lombard campus, Illinois Center for Broadcasting at the time, in 2013. So my journey was, loved sports, loved being around sports, loved playing. Kind of saw the writing on the wall my junior year when I was cut from the varsity team. I didn't have the Michael Jordan comeback story the next year. So instead, I kind of found the route of, hey, I really enjoy sports. I enjoy, communication, and that kind of merged those worlds. So, started off with blogging and covering high school sports. And then my buddy had a video camera and said, hey, you should try this, these video interviews. I've seen people try this. And it was the old tape recorder cameras. That, it kind of just from there stuck with me as like a passion. So had the opportunity to attend the Illinois Center for Broadcasting, graduated early from high school so I could take part in the program, because I know it's like a year round. So I kind of caught it on the good side right around February of 2013. So that was really special. And then just from there, the different opportunities and experiences along the way. I remember the first thing my instructor, Wendell Ray, told me on the first day of class was, you learn so much in school, but it's what you apply in the real world that's really going to help you. And that really just stuck with me. And obviously at that time, you're 17, 18 years old, and you're willing to run through a brick wall just to chase different opportunities, have different experiences and endeavors. So that was for me, really that, and growing and building reps. So through the curriculum at the school, learning about social media, digital media, broadcast, production, and all of that, and just kind of finding your set. So had a chance to intern at Comcast Sportsnet at the time, now NBC Sports Chicago, and see how, hey, these reporters and people go about their jobs, and you kind of try to take some of those tips to the trade. So that was I would say through those experiences and kind of staying the course and going out there to cover different sporting events, and then kind of merging into the social media and sports world, learning more there, having the right type of mentorship, I think, along the way is helpful, and colleagues that helped me grow into the professional that I am today. And always just being willing to learn, and those different stops along the way at those professional levels, I think, helped me grow into becoming a student of the trade, but also to your point, a growing, into that expert that you kind of alluded to, and continuing to do so. So I would say that helped me out to this moment.
That you said a lot in there, and I'm excited about it, because we're going to unpack a lot of what you said, because I don't think a lot of students really understand everything that you just said. So I'm looking forward to unpacking that, Derek. All right. So Nate, you have the floor. Tell us what brings you here, and what makes you an expert in this industry.
Hey guys, I'm Nate. I'm from the Cleveland suburbs. We'll use the expert in the loosest sense of the word possible, but I do have 15 years working in television. I went to Ohio Center for Broadcasting at the time because I actually wanted to be on the radio. There was a local sports, our WTAM guy, Mike Trevisano. He used to always get me all fired up listening to him. I was 24 years old, and I thought I could do that. I could be on the radio and get people angry, riled up, calling in. And then actually on of all days, 4/20/2016, or 2006, the Cavs made the playoffs, and ESPN called the school, and they needed a runner, like a PA type gig, someone to go get the coffee, pick up the talent, and they asked me and another guy to do it, and I guess I did a good job, and I was good. And this production manager also did golf for the PGA. And she said, if you could get yourself there, I could get you a job as a runner on the PGA Tour. And so within 3 months of graduating OCB at the time, I was on the court with LeBron James, driving around Lisa Salters and Mike Breen. I was in a gallery with Tiger Woods, and I was hooked. I forgot all about those ambitions of radio, and TV became my jam. And I just worked my way up from position to position. When you first start out, all you're doing is getting coffee and picking people up. So you got to pick people's brain and find out how they do the other jobs that go on in this industry. And that's what I did. And here now, 15 years later, I just ran camera for CBS for the Browns game yesterday. So I've come that not as high as I'd like to go ever, but network football is. The director reminded us yesterday that we were one of 16 crews making a football game at the NFL level yesterday, or during last week's football action, and that's special. So, like I said, I don't take myself very seriously. I love what I do, but as far as expert, I think what makes me an expert is just getting the job done. I know how television works. I know how things work. When a crewer hires me, they have nothing to worry about. I'm going to make sure what my responsibility is gets done. And I guess that's what makes me an industry expert.
Love it. Love it. So I want to jump into this because both of you guys are you have a very humble presence about yourself. I like what Nate said. I don't take myself seriously. And when we're in media, especially, you learn not to take yourself seriously. You learn to laugh at yourself.
Yeah.
But media is full of egos, very big egos. We get paid to have an ego. So how different is it for you to be in the position that you are in, doing what you do in sports, and how much of an ego, letting it run and checking it, how much do you have to do as opposed to who you're working with? Nate, I'll let you run with it first, and then I'll give it to Derek.
I think it's very important to check your ego, especially if there's people in school now, starting out, because no one wants a big egoed person that just started. And like I said, 15 years in, I've done some shows that impress myself sometimes. I can't believe I'm there. So I don't want to see someone starting out coming in thinking they're big stuff, because I don't think I'm big stuff even doing what I'm doing. So I think but you're right. We are in an ego, and maybe I'm an exception sometimes. I think it's important as a person to check your ego and not let it run away. Sure, what we do is cool. Working in broadcasting is cool, but we could be right back doing a normal job if we had to. With the pandemic really made me check my ego, because I thought sports would never go away. And then that March of 2020, it was gone. And first, I did that last Cavs game before the season was canceled. Then the MAC tournament was canceled. And then I was facing everything I knew of who I was taken away. So whether it be a pandemic or anything, I just live my life like that could happen at any time. You never know what happens where you could end up back from square one. So it's important not to let your ego, to me, get too carried away in this business.
Love it. Derek, you got the floor.
For sure. Yeah, I think, reflecting back on it, that was always kind of the similar mentality was never to take anything for granted. I felt that when I got involved early on in the sports media path, and I was, working my way up from covering high school sports to college sports to eventually the league and being around, high profile NBA players or whatever the case might be. I always just, I kind of always had more of like a chip on my shoulder, I would say. And I think a lot of that stemmed from being younger in the game, sending out your resume, sending out your demo reels, and not getting hits. So it kind of pushes you and it makes you truly appreciate everything. I'll never forget the day I graduated. I had a call with a network executive, and he kind of said, "Hey, everything that you've done up until this point is solid, but the substance of your work isn't very good. Like you won't last 6 months in the industry." My dream interview was to interview Derrick Rose. I had an ultimatum at that point. I just graduated trade school, put all my eggs in one basket. I said I could either, listen to what this individual had told me, this piece of advice they shared with me, what they felt about me and my work at 18, or I could grow. I could keep going, stay the course, and try to grow. And decided to stay the course. And 3-4 months later, the summer of 2014 really changed my life. I was fortunate to conduct my dream interview with Derrick Rose at the age of 20 years old. And that same summer so those goals and those things that, had I thrown in the towel and just said, oh, this person's right, you know what I mean? Then you're not looking at the blessings and the experiences that are coming forth for you. So that for me always kept me grounded, because similar to what Nate just mentioned, so for me, I worked to fund my dream. So I worked at Buffalo Wild Wings for 3-4 years while still chasing the dream of traveling, covering sporting events, wherever credential opportunities were at, to go out and do interviews, on my own dollar, whatever the case might be. So you're going to interview Jabari Parker at 12 o'clock, and then you have to be back in time to serve wings at 4. So that keeps you very humble and grounded. So that for me was, again, so what Nate just mentioned, I never took it for granted, because I knew that, okay, I'm fortunate to be in this room, in this vicinity with these, elite athletes, right? But the biggest thing was knowing that you still have more you want to work towards and what you want to do. So always staying even keel and building those relationships around you. And like you mentioned, Phillip, the Chicago sports media scene, especially, there's a lot of great individuals. There's also a lot of people that you may cross paths with that say, hey, reach out to me. And, maybe they're not getting back to you. Maybe it's just a formality, but it's just how you take that mentality early on, and which I feel like you apply later. And the most, genuine thing is just, in my opinion, honestly, is, cliche as it sounds, is just being a good person. Like, and I know that's, the golden rule, like just be kind to everybody. You don't know what everybody's going through. Everybody's journey is different. Everybody's story is different. So when I had my first break in the industry at 23, which was 4 years after graduating school, I went to Tampa Bay. I worked with the Buccaneers, social media intern. I was creating content, working with the guys. Didn't have an opportunity right after. Came all the way back to Chicago, worked at Buffalo Wild Wings. So it was, you're at the top. You feel like you're at that moment, right? And then it's God's kind of way, in my opinion, of saying, okay, you're almost there. I'm gonna bring you back down to life a little bit, and then you stay the course, and now the rest is history, as you say, is continuing to be written. So I think that's a passionate topic for me. So I appreciate that. That was a great question. I think that's something for me that always just stuck with me, and is just continue to stay your course, understand that, hey, like, you could be in the room with this individual the one day doing this interview, and the next day you're back, doing something in a different industry. So understanding that, nothing's ever guaranteed, and not taking those opportunities for granted.
Love it. Thank you, gentlemen. I love it. Humility is such a big thing, and especially in media in general, and then in sports where egos flare. We love to see those egos when we're watching the athletes go out. We love to see those egos flare. So fantastic. So here's a question. I'm going to throw it over to Derrick, and then I'm going to throw it back to Nate. And then I see some chats that are happening in the chat, so we'll make sure we acknowledge those as well. Question for you is, how have you grown your brand since you've graduated, since you've been in the industry doing sports? How have you grown your brand? Derrick, you have the floor, and then we're going to throw it over to Nate.
Yeah, no, I think that's, that's really been an exciting one, because early on, doing a lot of those interviews and the coverage, like you're posting it everywhere, right? Because you're getting your reps. So you're posting it to LinkedIn, you're sharing links to your, halftime, one-man band, like stand-up reports, right? You're like doing all these different things that you're sharing out there. And I think that is important because it does set the tone and the foundation for what your passions are, and I think and what your skill set is and what you're trying to portray. So for me, it's definitely evolved, I think, over the years since merging into that social media and sports world, where now you're a little bit more cognizant of, what content looks like and feels like, and then how you can tell your story. For me, the biggest thing is storytelling overall. So even if it's a post about, maybe that's not, related to an interview or a moment through Wilson, or whatever the case might be, it's still trying to find a way to tell a story so somebody can understand who Derek is, and then but also at the same time showing your craft and showing your progression. I think that's really big, because somebody could go back on your profile and say, oh wow, yeah, and 2018 they did this, and in 2020 they did this. So they kind of see your progression, or maybe how you've grown, how you've been able to use certain skill sets and to tricks of the trade, if you will, along the way. And for me, in 2019, when I had the chance to return back home to Chicago and work at Wilson, my biggest thing was not steering away from sports media entirely. So when I launched my own entity, Spallone Sports, that's where I was fortunate to have a lot of support and just previous relationships from kind of going the independent and freelance route before, where now you're kind of doing your own thing. You're owning a little bit more of the content. So you want it to look a certain way. You're working with, a team of other teams of professionals who focus in, production or whatever the case might be, so you can match a certain aesthetic. So the Spallone Sports page kind of had to have a certain look and feel. And then on your own, personal page, as you're growing your brand, you're still trying to cross promote and support the work that you're doing, and highlighting and just some of those different experiences. So I think that's definitely has been a big thing for me, is just, always being conscious of what you're posting. As you guys, I mean, as we kind of learned early on, of careful of what the social media space is, because everything out there is always permanent on the internet. But they just staying authentic to yourself, in my opinion, is just the biggest thing. Like if your page and how you're building your brand is, how do you want to portray to people? You never really know who's watching, and I wholeheartedly mean that. You truly never know. So somebody comes across your page, could be a chance for an opportunity. They see the type of work you do, they see how you're, the type of vision that you have for your aesthetic and whatnot. So that's something I've always kept in mind as I was building, the brand, was letting it happen naturally and organically, but understanding that I wanted it always to be around storytelling. So that was like the North Star, if you will. And so that's why I always kind of keep that in the back of my head, or the front of my mind, I should say, when I'm going about respective posts or sharing out work, is how do I want this message and this story to be told about this moment and this experience.
Love it. All right, Nate, you got the floor.
For me, it's kind of like pre and post pandemic. Pre-pandemic, I never really had to grow my brand. I started working for this company, Lion Video, and they basically took care of me. All the work they did all the Cavs and Indians and basically anything that happened television wise. And they just called me and asked me to work. Then, like I said, when the pandemic hit and everything went away, that's when I told Linda during a talk we had that I waited till 38 to take my career seriously. But at 38, I thought I need to start building a brand. As an old millennial, that like cliche kind of makes me cringe a little, my brand, but it made me realize I am a marketable entity. And it really made me think about 18 months ago, I worked a content marketing conference, and I was the camera guy, but I was picking some stuff up, and I was like, you know what? I am a content marketer. I make content, and I need to market myself to sell it. And pre-pandemic, Derek hit on a lot of good. I probably used Facebook wrong. I used Twitter wrong. Like I said, I'm to the left of Stalin, so I shared that on Facebook. I got into political arguments with the director of the Guardians. I did things that work-wise probably weren't in my own best interest. And now post-pandemic, that I've been thinking of myself more as a brand, as something to advance my career, I take business stuff to LinkedIn, and I try not to be Facebook friends with as many work contacts, so that I can still kind of be myself and not worry. Because what Derek said is very true. I think in my career, I've probably made not enemies, but not friends by opinions I've shared on. A lot of my opinions go against society's views, and it's okay to be that. Like Derek said, being authentic to yourself, it's okay to be authentic to yourself in a private setting, but that's not something that, if it goes against social constructs or norms, that then you should be sharing with people that you want to respect you at work. So when I think of social media and all that stuff, I feel like being a little bit older and not as hip to it. For my brand, it's a very pre and post pandemic thing. I've tried to take it more seriously. I've tried to display my professional abilities on LinkedIn and leave my social views on Facebook and Twitter, instead of trying to mix the two together. That doesn't always work out well. So I was thinking about that before we had the meeting, and it was very insightful by Derek. It is important, if you want to be taken seriously as a professional, to portray yourself professionally on social media.
I love it. I love the fact you said a couple of different things there, Nate. And Derek, you elaborated on it as well. Being able to identify the mistakes that we made when we were young in the profession or not in the profession, and then transitioning into this media profession, being able to make those adjustments. We've all made mistakes. And we've made mistakes on social media. And so when you learn from those mistakes, you're able to go further. And I like how Derek said that you're able to look and do what you do. And in social media, it saves everything. You can see the development of someone when you go through their social media page. So
it's embarrassing.
But it's growth. It's being human. And that's the one thing about employers. Employers are not expecting people to be perfect. Employers are looking for people to own who you are and still be able to do the job. And if you made a mistake, acknowledge you made a mistake and move on, and learn from it. So I love it. We got some more stuff, but I got some people that have asked some questions. So one of the questions John Gerard asked, John, if you're there, you want to go ahead and ask the question? We're going to open the floor up for some people to ask questions. John, you want to turn on your mic and ask a question?
Yeah. We all in our careers have had some level of regrets or hard lessons learned. Nate, you may have hit upon it just with some of your commentary about the pre and post piece of it. But Derek, I'll start with you. Anything when you started out that you learned the hard way, or was a hard lesson to learn, or you wish you knew, kind of coming out the door?
Yeah, so one, and this is probably a little different for the response. I'll say this, and keeps going back to what I was saying about truly everybody's story and journey being different. One thing I wish that I would have done a little bit more in the present was live in the present. So what I mean by that is sometimes we're so focused on our journey about what's next, got to keep it rolling, got to keep momentum going, got to keep, getting reps, experiences and stuff like that, that we're not so indulged in ourselves in what is currently going on and what that's like, especially when you're younger. So like I mentioned, I was blessed to conduct some of these interviews and achieve goals that I had set for myself. And I focused so hard on memorizing questions, being prepared for the moment, staying ready so you never have to get ready, like those type of things. And then when the moment came, you did it and you felt really good, but it was almost the first time you watched it was when it was done and posted afterwards. When in reality, you could live a little bit more in it, an interview is supposed to be more of a conversation, right? But when I was younger, I was so focused on not messing up. So I wanted every question to be perfect. So if Phillip and I are having, if I'm interviewing Phillip, I'm hitting on everything, but Phillip's saying some very insightful things in his responses, but I'm going to the next question because I'm so focused on just having everything flow really well. But in reality, as you're growing and you're learning, oh, it can be a conversation. I can listen and still be attentive. It's okay to stumble on a word here and there. So you're able to live in it while it's happening, and then you see it afterwards and say, oh wow, okay, this was how I was, as opposed to seeing it for the first time or living in it after the fact. So I would take that route with that. That was something for me early on that I would encourage, everybody on the call, whatever your journey is in your path, is like, live in it. I know we have the aspirations and the goals, like, be on ESPN by tomorrow, and certain cases like that. And that was myself, hey, but it was just staying that course and really like living in those moments, because we're all, everybody on here is all industry professionals. So whether I know you mentioned getting your foot in the door for your first break and opportunity, but treating yourself as like, hey, I am a professional. Now I'm just working my way up the ladder. You know what I mean? So those are things I think for younger that I look back on and say, hey, this was a really cool moment and experience. I wish I would have had a chance to really appreciate and live in it just a little bit more. And I've challenged myself now on this chapter to, over the last few years, to really do that. And I think that's what Phillip was kind of mentioning, growth, where you recognize opportunities to grow. And that was an area that I would say.
Yeah, I think it's a fine line to walk though, right? Because you definitely have to early on do that prep and do that legwork. But I think as you progress in that, the confidence grows, and then you can kind of take it in more in real time, for sure.
For sure.
All right, Nate, we want to give you a chance to answer that question. Lesson learned, one lesson learned, or regret that you went through in the industry.
If I had a lesson learned, the one thing I wanted to share today was reach out and let people know what you want to do. When I was saying earlier how Lion Video basically guided my career through the early years, I wish I had reached out to more people. And I was happy, I was comfortable, but I told you I worked the CBS game yesterday. I got a hold of them by emailing a crewer from CBS and saying, hey, I'd like to work Browns games if I could. And he emailed me back and said, yeah, it was just an email. Some of that stuff is so simple, and you think that people know what you want to do because it's going on in your head, but you don't always just say it. So if I could give advice, and it kind of combines advice, regret all in one, is not reaching out more, because I've had access to tons of emails. On every show they post everybody's email on the truck, and take advantage of little things like that. Any contact you have, not at an annoying level, email a day or anything like that, but a job you're interested in. And if you know someone at a company, send them an email. Say, hey, I'd like to do this. Hey, because people don't know unless you tell them. And that's something that I've picked up over the last couple of years, is being upfront with what you'd like to do, because it's easier for everybody. It's easier for you. It's easier for the people that you're interested in working with. They might not have to go find someone if you've already said, hey, if there's any opportunity, I'd like to do this. So any contact that you get anywhere throughout your journey, keep it in your email. I never delete any of my business emails. I always have records I could go back and look through and find an email. And in slow times, I can email a crewer that I haven't worked with in 2 years and say, hey, I got some free time. I'd like to do this. So that's my advice. Regret that I didn't do it. Hopefully you do. Be more upfront with what you want to do. Don't make people wonder yourself. Just say it. Just do it, like Michael Jordan would say behind Derek there.
Love it. Love it. All right. So just to keep in time, we've got 26 minutes before the forum is complete. We're going to open up the floor. We're going to let some people ask some questions. And then after we get everybody asking questions in the chat, we're going to cut over and ask some more questions to continue the forum. Keep in mind, we're going to give you the floor. Introduce yourself. and ask your question, and then give these gentlemen time to answer so that you can pull from their wisdom. So with that being said, Marvin Shows, I see you typed a question in the chat. Go ahead, unmute your mic, and go ahead and introduce yourself and ask your question. Marvin. If I can't get him, then I'll just read his question for him. All right, I'll read his question for him. Marvin asked the question, what are you guys' idea of a great first step after graduation? And then he followed up with, like, a great place to start out. I want to do media, anything in media. So Nate, I'll let you take it, and then Derek, you can follow up with it.
I think from my line of work, working in television, I would say try scoreboard shows. Cavs, Guardians, Browns, reach out to them. Spectrum hires a lot of younger people. There's a company called Classic Teleproductions in Cleveland. They shoot a lot of high school football. They're a good starting point company. Local television news. Any job that's posted online is probably a good entry level. I mean, that you could pick out from. But I always think, from my point of view, working in television, I always kind of wish I had started on a scoreboard show or a smaller show, because they allow you more freedom to do more things. If you want to try replay today, go ahead. If you want to try camera tomorrow, go ahead. Do the switcher. I'm super happy the way my journey worked out, but starting right away with ESPN on these big shows, I didn't really learn a lot. I learned how to go get coffee. I learned how to drop the announcers off at the airport. But from a television production wise, I didn't learn. I had to come back and work more local cable shows to really learn how television is made. So the best place to start is the place that are looking for people to start fresh out of school. So whether that be the Akron Rubber Ducks, we have a lot of minor league baseball, somewhere in a control room, anywhere that will let you in and start getting your hands on equipment is the place to start.
Sounds good. Derek?
Yeah, no, I would just, say, I guess it truly depends on what your, your passions or your interests are. I know there's obviously different routes through, radio, broadcast, production, reporting, whatever those experiences are, whatever your route or your passion is I would say I would just encourage you to try to get those reps and understand that it is possible to get those reps and experiences by one-man banding, by reaching out to public relations staff members for different teams, different schools, different opportunities. Finding your ways to get those reps and those experiences will also put you in the door with other professionals, other media professionals, and allow you to network. So not only are you getting your hands-on experiences doing what you enjoy, but you're also able to meet others and building those relationships. So you're building out your you're building out your respective ecosystem of different connections and whatnot too. So I would say, that would be my piece of advice for coming out is finding those ways to get those opportunities. You don't necessarily have to, to wait on anybody. I think it's good for you to pursue your goals and your dreams. And then of course there's job boards, Teamwork Online is a big one for sports. STA Talent is a big one for broadcast and media. I'm sure, there's other job boards and leads opportunities, but a lot of entry-level positions or internship opportunities. I also, I won't speak for Nate. I know for me, like I said, I worked to fund the dream. So sometimes you're doing a lot of free work as well, to come out. So I think that goes back to the pride and the ego, putting it aside and saying, hey, if you want those reps and those experiences, you do it to a certain point. Don't do free work, please, for any. And that's something I've had to also learn from people as well, to tell me, because sometimes you're just so eager for the opportunity that you'll just do anything, but you do need to know your worth and respect your values too, and what you bring to the table as a professional. But I would say that's my piece of advice for coming out of school.
Love it. So let's go to Trayvon Wright Lacey. He asked a question, and he's said a couple of things, but Trayvon, I'm gonna give you a chance to introduce yourself and then ask your question.
All right, hey guys, I'm Trayvon Lacey. I'm a graduate April of the Columbus Media School, Ohio Media School. My question to you guys is, let me go back here in the chat. I was just wondering because I do have a family. I'm just turned 30. I got a couple kids in my life. How many hours do you guys work on an average day? I know that's a kind of a different question than a lot of people would ask, but how many hours do you guys work on a average day? And do you think it's any different from when you guys first came out of college to now? Like, did your hours go up or down, or yeah, basically how many hours do you guys work in a day?
Derek, you want to start, or you want me to?
Yeah. No, I could hit on that really quick. Trayvon, first off, nice to meet you. Congratulations, and hope everything's going well. So thanks for asking that question. I would say it was social media and sports is a little bit of a different beast when it comes down to hours, because kind of the social media world's a 24/7 landscape. So I think I was fortunate that this was really in 2020, right around 2020. I was fortunate to get my first like full-time offer in the sports world. So I went in from being contracted to being not more on like a salary, and from there they kind of, your hours aren't as in control as they were previously when you're getting paid per hour. So I would still say you're probably looking at 40 to 50 hours a week, which is, I'm thankful for that. And it's nice to have that, stability and constant, but I think it's also good to have that work-life balance, which is also important, I think, for any employer and opportunity. I think the sports world in general is a little different. Like when I was with the Buccaneers and the Packers as an intern, like sometimes you're working like 60 hours, because you're just going around, you're at events, you're at games, you're grabbing content here, grabbing content there. So you're really, and then you still have your office hours too. So that was a little bit different. I think the sports world in general, hours are always going to be kind of in flux, whether it's through holidays and certain things like that. But where I'm currently at right now is around that 40 to 50 a week.
Hey.
Yeah, Trayvon,
Okay.
It's good to meet you, man, but you gotta love it. Like me as a freelance, and getting back to something Derek said to start to, I want to be clear. I had to work. I went to OCB at 24. I worked as a painter with my dad till I was 35. So the first 9 years, I did something else. So that's one thing I want to be clear about. This is a tough job to get a full-time job right away.
Right.
But right now, I'll probably work 22 days in a row, and I work anywhere from 5 to 10 hours a day, depending on what the show is. Like Bally Sports will do show Browns Red Zone. That's a 5-hour day. But then today I'm the late call RO at Cavs. So I go in at 4 and I'll work till the game's over at 10 o'clock or whatever. So you don't know. It's a lot of second shift. It is. I have 2 kids. I have 2 kids and a wife as well. It's a hard job with family stability. And like Derek was saying, I'd like to have more work-life balance, but right now things are so in demand. I could work every day, every weekend. Now that we work for this company, Program Productions, they send out blast emails every weekend. We need someone here. We need someone there. Big Ten Network in Chicago, where Derek's at, I'm in Cleveland. They've hit me up every weekend since the first weekend of September to go there. They need technicians to run replay. I mean, it is right now. It's in demand. So if you're in Columbus, if you want to hit me up on LinkedIn, I could try to get you in with, depending on what you want to do, some television professionals. But yeah, it is out there and in demand. So you could work as much or as little as you want. The more stuff you say no to, the less likely people are to keep calling you back. So that's why I am the last person. I'm not a hustle culture guy and you got to do this, but you got to do the work if you want to keep getting asked back. So I try to work as much as possible. Sometimes it creates some stress on my family life, but it's a good gig and I love doing it, So it's a lot like being in sports, the sports, they call them football widows or whatever, where during these changeover times when college football, pros and baseball overlap, broadcast sports professionals are in demand. There is work to be done almost every day.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. That was great. I appreciate you guys for sharing that with me.
Thanks for the question, Trayvon.
Absolutely. And then, Nate, I'm in Cincinnati. I'm not in Columbus. But
well, dude, let me tell you, Cincinnati. I was in Cincinnati on Thursday, because they need people down there. So it could get slow sometimes with you guys only having one baseball team and not having. But there's a lot of college stuff that goes on at Xavier and UC, and I just saw a job post in Louisville. So there's stuff going on down there too.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
if you want, hit me up on LinkedIn and we could chat.
Okay, absolutely, man. Appreciate it.
No problem, bud. Have a good day.
You too.
Thank you, Trayvon. All right, let's open up the mic to Fernando. We're going to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself, ask your question so these gentlemen can answer it. Just to let you guys know, 15 minutes before we have to wrap up, which means we need to be done in 10.
Hey, how you doing? Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
All right, okay, great. How you doing? Fernando here. I'm also alumni from the Miami Media School down here. I graduated in 2015. Great stuff. I've been in and out of production, but the question I asked was from YouTube that I took, what's the difference between like a camera op and like building your brand as like the next on-air talent, because like sometimes you're just there as a camera op or you're just running wires, but you can't always like try to create this brand. You're just like a utility person. So like, what's the difference between just playing a position and trying to create a brand like Derek to Nate?
I think you have to make the decision, and not like me and Derek are two things to be, but do you want to be Derek or Nate? Do you want to be in front of the camera or behind it? Because that's the thing. I said I want to be on the radio, but I don't want to be in front of the camera. I want to do all the jobs behind it. And I think if you want to be in front of it, you have to be pretty dedicated to being in front of it. Like Derek said, get your reps in front of the camera doing hits. There's a lot of people that could do both, but I feel like if you're asking the question specifically, how do you do one or the other? I feel like you have to dedicate yourself to doing one or the other.
Yeah, no, great point, Nate, and Fernando, great question. And I just want to say I wish there was a Miami Media School when I decided to go to school. No, but I would encourage really the same thing as those reps, Fernando. So I think to your point is, while you are on site at these events for the production standpoint, whether you're grabbing behind the scenes photos or finding certain ways right now, obviously, and Nate could probably speak to it. I know it kind of varies with, access and maybe professionalism of what you're able to capture, what you have the rights or licensing to share about when you're there for a CBS, as compared to maybe yourself.
I do a lot. I don't know the boundaries, but I take some pictures.
There you go. No, but you know what I mean? So for example, Fernando, like there's, the TikTok vlogs, right? Someone's like, hey, show you behind the scenes of me being on site today for the Cleveland Browns broadcast. And that way, so you're still telling that story, even if you're behind the scenes, because it's like you're showing the sights and sounds of the day. So I would encourage something like that. Allows you to get some reps, allows you to feel out for social media. And then also, still keeps you in a good standing, I'm sure, with the respective, you're the company that you're on behalf of, but also your job. I think that's the biggest thing. It's what you're on site for. You want to do that job 110% all the way. But then if there's opportunities for you to tell a story or to carve out some time to grab some clips and put them together later, you're still showing your storytelling ability. And then on top of that, going out there to, to one-man band, or if you know other videographers and you have, kind of your setup to do some interviews at a high school game or a college game, or maybe you get an opportunity, to do something on the professional level too with professional sports. So I would say that's probably the biggest thing, is which route do you ultimately want to go into. But both do help you, because if you know production, then you could, so I would say that.
Yeah, because I didn't want like people just come on the very first day and start TikToking like, hey, run those wires. So it's like you gotta pick and choose. But thank you so much.
You know what, bro? And like Derek said, pick your spots. if you check out my LinkedIn, I try to take a couple pictures on LinkedIn during the downtime. Like I said, old millennial, I don't TikTok or anything, but I do want to. I told Linda in our talk, I try to use social media to show people, look, this is what I can do. So here are my pictures from a job. This is what I'm doing. Kind of a bit of a, like Derek said, a growing resume. Hey, you could go look what I was doing last month, last year, you know. And like you said, Fernando, that's very astute. In a professional way, you don't want to just show up and start taking pictures, but there's a lot of downtime in this business where in a professional manner, you could grab a couple pics for your social to show that you've been there, what you're doing.
Love it. All right. Huda, you've got the floor. I see you typed a question, so go for it.
I did. I wanted to think about sometimes with these guest speakers, you guys provide so much great information, but it's hard for students and those just starting out to figure out like that first step, right? Once you're in, great. These are the people you talk to. This is how you go about moving around. But for that first step, and I'm thinking specifically as they need internship hours, would you recommend maybe just kind of like cold calling local schools or high schools to try and like offer hey, I can do play-by-play, I can do operating, camera operating, like try and create your own internship. And if so, like what would that sound like? Or do you have a better recommendation to kind of get that foot in the door and start gaining that hands-on experience? Because it's one of those, you need the experience to get the job, but you can't get the job until you get the experience,
Derek, you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, no, that's a great question. And I think LinkedIn, of course, starting out is such a big tool because if you're interested in, your specific niche that you're trying to go into. So if it's, let's say, broadcast and you're connecting with all the different broadcasters and you're able to, build a rapport and ask different questions. I agree that it is okay. I think it's personally like and I did this, so that's why I could kind of speak to it, like sending emails and reaching out about opportunities at those different school levels. And honestly, that's even just a good piece of advice for career opportunities. So I'll just share really quick before I kick it over to Nate. For myself, what I did for, I want to say 3-4 years right after the gate was I looked at the staff directory for every MLB team, every NFL team, and every NBA team, found out who their broadcast manager was, found out who their social media manager was. And at the end of their respective seasons, so I would wait until gap points and I would send an email to, so all those individuals just inquiring about social media opportunities or broadcast opportunities, internship opportunities, job statuses, just to share, hey, this is what I've been doing. Here's my resume. And it takes a little time and you got to, again, be passionate and kind of dedicated to that if that's where the route you want to go. But that's kind of how you separate yourself. So some people will do handwritten letters. I have a colleague who used to send handwritten letters to every team, and that's handwritten. So, I was going the email route. Again, still takes time and research. You have to, you want to make sure everything's flowing and you're doing it respectfully. But it's just putting yourself out there. It's going that extra mile. You apply for a job, try to find out who that hiring manager is afterwards too. Find their email, send a quick note. Hello, such and such. My name's Derek. Just applied for this role. If there's an opportunity to have a conversation about it, would welcome the chance. Things like that just say, oh, okay, maybe you're not sure if your resume will get handpicked from the mix from HR, if it's going to go through the screening. But just some of those things help kind of separate yourself when you go that mile, kind of trying to have that rapport. And if you do have in the network or that relationship, it does help out. But those are just steps. It just truly, it's like, how bad do you want it? Do you want to, if this is really that role or this is the type of industry, then you have to be comfortable making those cold emails. I personally never really did too many cold calls, but that I think offering your services is great, right? Hey, reaching out to some of those schools or colleges, SIDs, ADs, saying, hey, like just looking to get some reps and hands-on experience. Can I help out on a game day with you guys? Like doing those things and then not being afraid to follow back up in those things. So those are just some tips I would suggest that really helps you put yourself out there instead of just waiting for an opportunity to come. So that would something like that.
We're at the rapid fire point. We're 7 minutes in. So what we're going to do is We're going to constrict time, 30 seconds for each question for each of you, Derek and Nate, as well as for people that are asking questions. And I got some things I want to ask here. So 30 seconds, Nate, to the point that Huda asked, what would be a great first step?
Derek pretty much nailed it. Make it your mission to find someone to get you a gig. I wish there was all this LinkedIn stuff. You could search crewing manager. Every crewing manager in the country pops up. You could search broadcast operations manager. Every broadcast operations man. What he said is 100% correct. You have to make it about you. Sometimes I think people don't make it from the school and they blame, oh, they didn't do this for me. They didn't do that. All the school is doing is giving you the opportunity, giving you the knowledge of what's out there, the tools that are out there to make it. You have to make it like any other profession, your goal to get in with these people. And the amount of information, like Derek said, that's available freely on the internet of crewing managers on LinkedIn, like I said, saying the same thing over again, but all of this information is out there on the internet. Figure out what you want to do and search it. Search groups on Facebook. There's a group called Crew Call on Facebook. It's just people posting jobs, people asking questions. Hey, how do I become a camera operator? And everyone answers, hey, call this person, call. The tools are out there on social media, on the internet, whether it be a cold call or a cold email. Do it. It's your career. It's what you want to do. Like I said about reaching out, asking yourself, be proactive. Go out there and make it happen.
Hey, Nate, I said 30 seconds.
I'm sorry. I'm passionate about it.
I love it. That felt the passion through it.
I
Nate's
felt
been
it too.
rolling. I love it. It gets me riled up. Like that's where I'm like, we're matching that energy. So
Yes,
yeah.
I love it. All right, so we got 4 minutes left. One of the students asked about scoreboard. Heard scoreboard mentioned a couple of times. Can one of you elaborate on scoreboard? 30 seconds.
Scoreboard is who makes the in-house when you go to a game and everything that happens at a Guardians game when they show the fans in the stands. Someone is doing that like a small television AV work. That's basic. AV and television are called two different things, but they're the same thing. Audio, visual, television. It's all the same thing. It's all putting pictures and graphics and audio together to make a presentation. So at smaller places like a board or a rubber ducks game, there's less pressure. They'll let you do more stuff. So a scoreboard you could think of as like a small broadcast every game.
Nice. One person, Stephanie, just asked, what was that Facebook group that was just mentioned?
Crew Call.
Crew Call. All right, we are 3 minutes in. Gentlemen, closing thoughts. I wish we could give some more because I know you guys got a lot of information still to share. But closing thoughts, Nate, I'm gonna let you go first, and then Derek will let you wrap it up.
Yeah, if I could pass on anything, like I said, it's that stuff I'm passionate about. Do you make of it what you spent the money or someone in your family spent the money or you spent the time? Make something of it, people blame others for their shortcomings. Don't do that. Make of it what you want it to be and don't give up. And like me and Derek both said, it's tough. He worked at Buffalo Wild Wings. I painted houses. It's not like you just fall out of school and then you're the master of broadcast. You have to keep working, keep doing your own thing, because this is, as much as broadcasting is professional, it's also a lot of people's hobby too. You could go buy a camera from Best Buy and now you're a cameraman. You could buy audio gear from B&H and now you're an audio guy. So anyone, you could, like Derek said, out of his own pocket, you could make your own broadcast with stuff you buy yourself and not even worry about a job. Go shoot your own thing every day. So make of your opportunity the most. Like I said, all of these resources that I wish I knew about. And like I said, in 2006, when I graduated, there was no LinkedIn. There was no, all of this information wasn't freely available on the internet. So don't be afraid. Don't be shy. Make the most of it.
Derek?
Yeah, no, I would honestly just want to say stay the course. And what I mean by that is that blessing in that moment that could change your whole life could be right around the corner. But if you throw the towel in too soon, you're never going to know if that opportunity is right there. So it's kind of always speaking that and believing in that. And I think, again, you do have to be passionate about it. I know you're going to have those moments where it's like, man, I've been going at it for 2-3 years. Like when's that break coming? But you never truly know. So encourage you, if this is truly something you're passionate about, you really enjoy it. I know everybody's story, journey, background is different, but if it is that thing, it'll happen. It just may not be on your timing, but it will happen. So it's that, but it's continuing to be you know, continuing to reach out, continuing for yourself to get those reps and those experiences, and truly just stay the course. And also reach while you climb. That was one of the best pieces of advice I got. It is a very competitive industry. It's not impossible though. So as you're climbing up the ladder, put your hand down, help somebody else up too along the way, and that's gonna help the chain reaction down for the future's generation. So and then yeah, I'll just leave it at that. But please make sure you connect with Nate or myself, both of us rather. Not sure if Linda's passed around our contact info, but happy to connect on social media, LinkedIn, email, whatever we can do to be of support. We've been in your shoes. I understand it. It's different when you hear from professionals who haven't sat in your seats. We've sat in your seats.
Yeah.
So I understand. Nate
Learn to
understands.
over under
So
cable
yeah.
too if you want to work in television.
There you go.
It's 1 over, 1 under.